On a morning when the sun itself seemed afraid to rise, time ran out for an empire. Yet in that same instant, a nation was born in blood and soil. This is not the Gallipoli you were taught. Forget the beach landings you have seen in sepia. Tonight we walk the cliffs with the defenders, the Turks who believed they were guarding the last gateway to their world. Ask yourself, what does it feel like to stand on the rim of extinction, look the invader in the eye, and whisper, not one step farther? Gallipoli, 1915, through Ottoman eyes. History remembers the landing. We will remember the waiting. The sleepless nights on clifftop sangars, the taste of rust in the wells, the scratch of wool uniforms woven by widows in Anatolia. We will remember why a battlefield became a founding myth for two nations, one victorious, one vanquished, yet both forever changed. By the early 20th century, the empire that once frightened Europe still stood, but its knees trembled. 40 years of defaulted loans, provincial revolts, and czars hungry for warm water ports had reduced the sublime state to geopolitical joke. The sick man of Europe. In 1909, the autocratic Sultan Abdülhamid II, master of secret police, censor of newspapers, collector of clocks, was bundled into a railway carriage and sent to exile in Salonika, the city he had once ruled. Power passed to the Young Turks, ambitious officers and journalists who promised constitutional rebirth. They spoke of science, railways, Turkish nationalism. Yet the Balkan Wars of 1912 and 13 tore away Macedonia, Albania, Thrace. Refugees flooded Istanbul with tales of massacres. The empire's European footprint shrank to a toehold west of the Bosporus. Every diplomat in every chancellery of Europe nodded knowingly. The Ottoman future was a question of mortuary etiquette. When, not if. But mortuaries sometimes breed resurrections. Enter Enver Pasha. 29 years old, handsome in the way gamblers are, with a mustache like an exclamation mark. War minister. Romantic. Heir to the conviction that geography is destiny, and destiny could still be rewritten if the empire chose the winning side of the coming storm. August 1914. Europe commits suicide. Enver looks west, then east. France and Britain covet the straits. Russia hungers for Istanbul the way wolves hunger for lambs. Germany offers gold, rifles, and a military mission headed by General Otto Liman von Sanders, an old cavalryman who speaks Turkish with a Berlin snarl. Alliance follows, secret like a whispered betrothal. Two German warships, Goeben and Breslau, burst through British pursuit, anchor in the Golden Horn, don fezes, and become Ottoman cruisers. Their first act, bombard Odessa, Sevastopol, Theodosia. Black Sea ports burn, Tsar declares war. Britain and France follow. In a single night, the Ottomans close the Dardanelles, chokehold on Russia's grain, Russia's rifles, Russia's hope. The chessboard tilts. London frets. If the straits stay shut, the Eastern Front may collapse. Winston Churchill, First Lord of the Admiralty, dreams of forcing the Narrows, knocking the Ottomans out of the war, opening a warm water lifeline to Russia, perhaps even capturing Istanbul, a new Constantinople for a new crusade. He does not dream of what waits among the time-scented ravines of Gallipoli. November 3rd, 1914. The war is hours old when British and French battleships appear like iron cliffs. They fire without declaration, shell the fort at Sed el Bahr. 86 gunners vanish in a bloom of fire. The Ottomans scramble to return fire with Krupp guns cast in 1895. Ammunition is scarce, fuses corrode. Gunners wrap headscarves around cracked breeches. The bombardment withdraws, but the message is carved in stone. The Allies will come again, in greater numbers, with bigger guns. Liman von Sanders receives carte blanche to turn the Dardanelles into a nautical graveyard. Civilians are evacuated. Greek fishermen resettle in Lesbos. Underwater nets strangle the current. Mines bloom like deadly fruit. Searchlights sweep the Narrows. Krupp and Schneider pieces nestle in freshly poured concrete. By February 1915, the strait is a steel trap waiting for teeth. The Allies open with a long-range duel. Forts reply. Shells scream. Ricochet plume waterspouts. British sailors cheer until Turkish howitzers on mobile carriages fire from hidden ravines. Two Allied battleships limp away, decks slick with blood. A pause. Both sides study the map. The Narrows, only 1 mile wide, are the key. Admiral Carden plans a decisive push for March 18th. Ottoman officers lay an additional row of mines parallel to the shore, invisible at high tide. They christen the lane the Devil's Belt. March 18th. A fleet of 18 battleships, British, French, Australian, forms the most powerful squadron assembled since Trafalgar. They enter in 3 lines. At 10:30, the French flagship Bouvet strikes a mine. Her magazines detonate. She capsizes in 4 minutes, taking 638 sailors to the bottom. HMS Irresistible and HMS Ocean follow, broken backed, spilling oil and men into the current. Admiral de Robec signals withdrawal. The day ends with 3 capital ships on the seafloor, another 3 crippled. An Ottoman corporal on the cliff scribbles in his diary. The sea turned red, then black, then quiet. We thanked Allah for the Germans who taught us to lay mines. The myth of Allied naval invincibility drowns with the Bouvet. London pivots. If the guns cannot clear the path, soldiers must. Thus is born the Gallipoli land campaign, though the Ottomans do not yet know where the blow will fall. April. The peninsula steadies for invasion like a patient bracing for surgery. Liman von Sanders commands the new Ottoman Fifth Army, 84,000 rifles, many still wearing Balkan War bandages. He chooses defense in depth, thin tripwire platoons on the beaches, heavy reserves in the highland folds. He distrusts the terrain. He distrusts his allies. He distrusts his own staff, whom he keeps rotating to prevent conspiracy. 2 divisions hold his attention. The 9th under Halil Sami, guarding the southern toe. The 19th under a 34-year-old colonel whose blue eyes scan maps with unnerving intensity. Mustafa Kemal, later to be called Ataturk, father of the Turks, but tonight simply commander of a regiment earmarked for the reserve. Kemal argues the beaches are a feint. The real prize is the ridge spine. And Sanders overrules, yet keeps the 19th near the neck of the peninsula, just in case. Civilians evacuate. Wells are poisoned with dead mules. Roads are mined. Apricot orchards are felled to clear fields of fire. By April 24th, the stage is set. All that remains is the curtain. 0 hour, 0420, April 25th. The first landing at Eriburnu, soon to be dubbed Anzac Cove, unfolds in silence. 36 rowboats glide through darkness. An Ottoman sergeant named Adil, 70 rifles under his command, peers over the cliff edge. He fires a warning shot. The reply is a cascade of rifle fire, the crackle of machine guns, the metallic rasp of bayonets. By dawn, 2,000 Anzacs swarm the narrow beach, pressing inland toward the ridgeline. Adil's platoon is overrun. He orders a fighting withdrawal, sending runners for reinforcements. The message reaches divisional headquarters at Maidos. Enemy landing, strength unknown, request immediate support. Staff officers debate. Precious hours bleed away. At 9:30, Kemal, stationed 10 miles inland, receives a fragmented report. Allies scaling the heights, 27th Regiment retreating. He senses catastrophe. Without awaiting orders, he mounts his horse, gathers the entire 57th Regiment, and gallops toward the sound of guns. On the way, he issues the order that will echo through Turkish history. I do not order you to attack. I order you to die. By the time we are dead, other troops will come and take our place. They reach the crest of Chunuk bare minutes ahead of the Australians. A collision follows, bayonet against bayonet, rock against skull, prayer against curse. The ridge holds. Anzac advance stalls 200 meters from the summit. The invasion that was to have swept to Istanbul in 3 days bogs down in a slope of time and corpses. May brings mutual butchery. The Ottomans launch 2-night attacks at Eriburnu. Each fails. Each costs 10,000 lives. Trench foot, dysentery, and flies the size of bullets erode morale on both sides. Allied press reports speak of Johnny Turk as a fanatic. Ottoman diaries speak of the unbeliever who fights with courage equal to their own. Kemal, promoted to command the entire Anafarta sector, rotates his units every 48 hours, convinced that exhaustion is a deadlier enemy than shrapnel. He sleeps 2 hours a night on a blanket stretched over ammunition boxes, wakes with maps already unfolded in his mind. Meanwhile, Halil Sami quarrels with von Sanders over the allocation of artillery shells. He is relieved and sent to Istanbul in disgrace. An ominous portent of the political fractures gnawing the young Turk triumvirate. Yet the line holds. By June, the campaign ossifies into trench warfare reminiscent of the Western Front, but fought on the slopes of an ancient volcano where the soil is so thin that graves must be scraped into the rock. August 6th. Under cover of darkness, the British 11th Division wades ashore at Suvla, barely 10 kilometers north of the Anzac perimeter. Their objective, seize the Anafarta Heights, link with the southern beachhead, cut the peninsula in 2. Instead, they halt on the beach to brew tea. Kemal, now commanding all Ottoman forces in the sector, seizes the lull. He rallies remnants of the 5th Division, marches them through the night across dried lake beds, and counterattacks at dawn. For 3 days, the battle sways like a wounded bull. Cholera spreads, water is rationed to a cup per man per day, soldiers lick dew from stones. On August 10th, the British attempt a final push at Scimitar Hill. Ottoman artillery, recently reinforced by Krupp 150 mm howitzers shipped overland from. Germany turns the slope into a furnace of steel. The attack collapses. Suvla, like Anzac, becomes a tomb of dreams. Autumn approaches. Bulgaria mobilizes. The Berlin to Istanbul rail line reopens. Heavy guns rumble south. In October, long-range shells begin to fall on Allied supply depots. Morale sinks faster than the hospital ships that nightly bear away the maimed. Lord Kitchener, visiting the beachhead incognito, telegraphs London. "We can hold the ground, we cannot advance. Recommend evacuation." The cabinet hesitates, then yields. Night after night in December, over 140,000 men slip away in silence. Boots wrapped in sacking, rifles left upright with bayonets, fixed to fool the enemy. The last boat departs at 0420, December 20th. At dawn, Ottoman sentries stare across empty trenches, abandoned rum jars still swinging from parapets. They cheer, then fall silent, realizing the price: 56,000 dead, 97,000 wounded, 11,000 missing. An entire generation of Anatolian youth traded for a foothold that never moved more than 8 kilometers inland. Victory, yes, but the kind that hollows the soul. Istanbul celebrates with fireworks over the Golden Horn. Poets compose odes to the Turks who taught the world to die. Yet in private letters, officers confess, "We survived, but we do not live." For Mustafa Kemal, Gallipoli is the crucible. His name is spoken in palace corridors, in village coffeehouses, in the diaries of British generals who call him the most capable enemy commander I faced. 4 years later, when the empire itself is partitioned, he will ride out of Ankara to reclaim the country, not for sultans or caliphs, but for the Turks, who bled on these cliffs. He will outlaw fezzes, adopt the Latin alphabet, grant women the vote, and tell grieving mothers far beyond the seas, "Wipe away your tears. Your sons are now lying in our bosom and are in peace." After having lost their lives on this land, they have become our sons as well. Today, the peninsula is a park of reconciliation. Headstones face the sea, each inscribed with the same date of death, the 25th of April 1915, history's shorthand for valor on both sides. Archaeologists still unearth bullets fused together mid-air, testimony to the moment two empires collided and recoiled. Diplomats speak of lessons learned. Strategists debate what might have been. A successful landing could have knocked the Ottomans out, shortened the war, preempted the Russian Revolution, redrawn the Middle East. Perhaps no Sykes-Picot, no modern map of turmoil. Yet counterfactuals are luxury for the living. What remains is the earth itself, salted still with the bones of boys who believed they were fighting for the last breath of empire, and in doing so, gave birth to 2 nations, Turkey, forged in stubborn defense, Australia and New Zealand baptized in feudal courage on a foreign shore. So when next you hear the phrase Gallipoli, remember not the landing, but the waiting. Remember the sentry who fired the first shot, the colonel who ordered his men to die, the mine layer Nusret, whose unseen hand rewrote naval doctrine. Remember that empires fall not from a single blow, but from 1,000 cuts dealt in forgotten trenches under indifferent stars. And remember that history's most enduring victories are sometimes written in the language of refusal, not one step farther.